Felix was not just wealthy, he was extraordinarily wealthy. Born into a family that had built its fortune through generations of successful business ventures, Felix had never known a life of struggle. His home, a grand mansion nestled in the city's most exclusive neighborhood, was a testament to his riches. From sprawling gardens to expensive art and luxurious cars, Felix had everything money could buy. Yet, despite his lavish lifestyle, there was a void in his heart. Women flocked to him, but their interest always seemed rooted in his wealth. This left Felix disillusioned and weary of relationships. He began to wonder if true love, a love based on genuine connection and not on material possessions, was even possible for someone like him. He yearned for a partner who would love him for who he truly was, not for the fortune he possessed. After years of meeting women who only saw dollar signs, Felix decided to take matters into his own hands. He devised a bold and unusual plan. He would pretend to be crippled and leave his luxurious mansion behind. He moved into a modest, small self-contained apartment in a less affluent part of the city, far from the opulent world he had always known. His goal was clear: find someone who could love him, even in his most vulnerable state. Little did he know that this journey would change his life in ways he could never have imagined. Felix's new neighborhood was a far cry from the upscale world he was used to. The streets were narrower, the buildings older, and the pace of life slower. Gone were the neatly trimmed lawns and high-end boutiques. In their place were small shops, bustling markets, and everyday people trying to make ends meet. But Felix embraced this new environment with a sense of determination. He would no longer be Felix Danjuma, the wealthy heir. He would be just Felix, an ordinary man with an extraordinary secret. It was in this neighborhood that he first noticed Jasmine and Deborah, two sisters who lived a few blocks away. Jasmine, the older of the two, was strikingly beautiful. Her long hair and confident stride caught Felix's attention, and he couldn't help but be drawn to her. She walked with the air of someone who knew she was attractive, and Felix admired her from afar. Deborah, on the other hand, had a quieter presence. She was pretty, too, but it was her kindness and gentle demeanor that stood out to Felix. While he admired Jasmine's beauty, it was Deborah's warmth that made an impression on him. One day, as Felix was taking a stroll in his wheelchair, he saw Jasmine and Deborah walking together. His heart raced as he decided to approach them. Mustering all his courage, he politely asked to speak with Jasmine. To his dismay, Jasmine looked down at him with disdain. "Why would I waste my time talking to a cripple?" she scoffed. "I don't have time for people like you." With that, she walked away, leaving Felix feeling humiliated and rejected. Felix was deeply hurt by Jasmine's cruel words, but Deborah stayed behind. She couldn't bring herself to walk away without saying something. Looking at Felix with concern in her eyes, she apologized on her sister's behalf. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. Jasmine didn't mean what she said. "Please don't take it to heart." Felix was surprised by Deborah's kindness. It was a stark contrast to her sister's behavior. Despite the pain Jasmine's words had caused, Felix found solace in Deborah's understanding nature. She stayed and talked with him for a few moments longer, reassuring him that not everyone was as harsh as Jasmine. Felix appreciated Deborah's gesture, but deep down, he couldn't let go of his initial attraction to Jasmine. Something about her confidence still drew him in, even though she had been so cruel. He decided not to give up and continued trying to talk to Jasmine whenever he saw her around. Unfortunately, each attempt ended in further humiliation. Jasmine seemed to take pleasure in mocking him. She would laugh at his attempts to engage with her, making snide remarks about his situation and belittling him at every opportunity. Deborah, who often witnessed these exchanges, felt sorry for Felix. She couldn't understand why her sister was so heartless. Whenever Jasmine insulted Felix, Deborah would quietly apologize to him afterward, feeling a deep sense of pity for the man who seemed to be the target of her sister's cruelty. One day, as Deborah was on her way to the market, she happened to cross paths with Felix again. This time, Jasmine wasn't with her. Deborah greeted him warmly, and Felix, who had grown accustomed to her kindness, smiled back. They began to chat, and during their conversation, Felix asked about Jasmine. Deborah sighed, her expression softening. "Felix," she began gently, "I don't think you should keep trying with Jasmine. You don't deserve the way she treats you." Felix listened carefully as Deborah continued. "Jasmine can be very mean sometimes. She underestimates people and doesn't see their true worth. You shouldn't have to endure that kind of treatment." Felix appreciated Deborah's honesty. She wasn't trying to sugarcoat things or make excuses for her sister. Instead, she was looking out for him, trying to protect him from further hurt. "You're a good person, Felix," Deborah added. "You deserve someone who will see that." Felix found himself nodding in agreement. Deborah's words resonated with him, and for the first time, he began to question why he was so fixated on Jasmine. Was it just her beauty that had captivated him, or was there something deeper he was searching for? As they continued their conversation, Deborah offered to help push Felix home. He accepted, grateful for her company. Along the way, they talked more, and Felix began to see just how different Deborah was from her sister. She was kind, empathetic, and thoughtful, qualities that Felix had come to value more than physical beauty. Over the next few weeks, Felix and Deborah grew closer. What started as a simple act of kindness on Deborah's part soon blossomed into a genuine friendship. Deborah would visit Felix regularly, helping him with his house chores and cooking meals for him. She never once complained or made him feel like a burden. Instead, she treated him with respect and care, something Felix had rarely experienced outside of his wealth. One day, Felix fell ill, and it was Deborah who took care of him. She stayed by his side, making sure he had everything he needed and checking on him constantly. Felix was touched by her selflessness. Even though they hadn't known each other for long, Deborah treated him like family, and Felix found himself opening up to her in ways he hadn't with anyone else. They spent hours talking, sharing stories, and getting to know each other on a deeper level. Felix realized that he enjoyed Deborah's company more than he ever had with any woman in his life. There was something about her that made him feel at ease, like he could be himself without fear of judgment. As their bond grew stronger, Felix began to question his initial plan. Was he truly searching for love, or had he been trying to fill a void with the wrong things? With Deborah, he didn't have to pretend or put on a facade. She saw him for who he was, and that was enough. Despite his growing feelings for Deborah, Felix couldn't help but wonder if her kindness was genuine or if she was simply being nice out of pity. To test her sincerity, Felix came up with a plan. He asked his close friend Pascal to help him. Pascal was a wealthy man, just like Felix, and he agreed to play the role of a rich suitor to see if Deborah could be tempted by wealth. The plan was simple. Pascal would approach Deborah and try to woo her with grand gestures and promises of a luxurious life. If she showed any interest in Pascal, Felix would know that her kindness wasn't as genuine as it seemed. Over the next few days, Pascal approached Deborah on the street, offering her compliments and trying to strike up conversations. He even hinted at his wealth, dropping subtle clues about his expensive cars and lavish lifestyle. But to Pascal's surprise, and Felix's relief, Deborah didn't give him the time of day. She politely declined his advances and made it clear that she wasn't interested. No matter how persistent Pascal was, Deborah remained steadfast. She wasn't swayed by his wealth or charm. Felix watched from afar, his heart swelling with admiration for her. Deborah had passed the test without even realizing it, and Felix knew then that she was someone special. She wasn't like the other women he had encountered in the past. She wasn't after money or status, she valued people for who they were. With his doubts finally put to rest, Felix knew that he had found someone worth holding on to. He gathered his courage and asked Deborah to be his girlfriend. Despite his current condition, Deborah didn't hesitate. She looked at Felix with warmth in her eyes and accepted his proposal without a second thought. She had never seen him as anything less than a kind and genuine person, and she wasn't about to let his physical state dictate their relationship. A few weeks later, Felix decided it was time to reveal the truth to Deborah. He had kept up the charade of being crippled long enough, and he didn't want to hide anything from her anymore. One evening, as they sat together in his small apartment, Felix took a deep breath and stood up from his wheelchair. Deborah's eyes widened in shock as she watched him rise to his feet. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Felix, what's going on?" she asked, confusion and surprise written all over her face. Felix smiled gently and explained everything to her. He told her about his plan to find true love and how he had pretended to be crippled. Felix felt nervous as he prepared to take Deborah to meet his parents. This was a crucial step, not only for their relationship but also for him to reveal his true identity to her. Driving through the gates of his parents' grand estate, Felix could feel his heart pounding in his chest. Deborah, sitting beside him, looked around in awe at the luxurious surroundings. She had no idea what was about to happen. As they walked into the grand hall, Deborah was greeted by an atmosphere of elegance and wealth that took her breath away. Felix's parents, dressed impeccably, welcomed them with warm smiles, though Deborah could sense the power and authority they carried. Felix took Deborah's hand and led her to a quiet room where they could speak privately. With his heart racing, he began to explain everything to her, the reasons he had pretended to be crippled, the loneliness that his wealth had brought him, and how his search for true love had finally led him to her. Deborah listened, her eyes wide with disbelief and understanding. When Felix finished, he slowly knelt on one knee and, pulling out a beautiful ring, asked Deborah to marry him. Overwhelmed with emotion, Deborah's eyes filled with tears. She could barely speak as she nodded, her heart bursting with happiness. She accepted his proposal with joy, realizing that she had found something far more valuable than money, true love. Felix's parents watched with approval, knowing their son had finally found the love he had always longed for. After the emotional proposal, Felix and Deborah drove to his mansion, a grand estate that Deborah had never seen before. Felix, holding her hand, led her through the grand entrance, revealing the opulent surroundings that would now be their home. Deborah's eyes widened in disbelief as she took in the luxurious furnishings, the vast rooms, and the breathtaking views. The mansion that once felt empty and cold to Felix now radiated warmth and love, thanks to Deborah's presence. He could see her joy as she explored the house, her smile growing wider with every step she took. For Felix, it was no longer just a house, it was their future together, a place where they could build their dreams. Filled with excitement, Deborah couldn't wait to share the news with her sister Jasmine. She rushed over to Jasmine's place, eager to show her the engagement ring. Jasmine, unaware of Felix's true identity, looked at the ring in disbelief. "How could you say yes to a poor man on a wheelchair?" she scoffed, unable to hide her disdain. But when Deborah calmly revealed that Felix was, in fact, incredibly wealthy and had been pretending to be crippled to find true love, Jasmine's face turned pale with shock. The realization of what she had lost hit her hard. Without wasting any time, Jasmine hurried to Felix's mansion, hoping to apologize and win his favor, hoping that she could still find a place in his life. When Jasmine arrived at Felix's mansion, she was breathless with anticipation. She hoped that by apologizing and changing her attitude, she could somehow turn the situation in her favor. But Felix, standing tall and confident, saw through her sudden change of heart. He could see the insincerity in her eyes and the desperation in her actions. As Jasmine tried to explain herself, Felix interrupted her firmly. "Jasmine," he said, his voice calm but resolute, "you had your chance to treat me with kindness when you thought I was just a man in a wheelchair. But instead, you mocked me and looked down on me. I'm sorry, but you have no place in my life now." Jasmine, realizing that Felix was serious, felt a wave of regret wash over her. She had missed her chance at something real and genuine, all because of her pride and superficiality. She had been blinded by her own arrogance, and now, seeing Felix happy with Deborah, she knew that she had lost more than just a wealthy man. She had lost the opportunity to experience a love that went beyond appearances and material wealth. Accepting her defeat, Jasmine had no choice but to be happy for her sister. She congratulated Deborah, though her heart ached with regret. Felix and Deborah eventually got married, their bond strengthened by the trust, kindness, and honesty that had brought them together. They built a life filled with happiness, proving that true love could be found, as long as one was willing to look beyond the surface.